Hey folks, welcome back. We're resuming our play along series where we're playing as the Egyptians in the ancient era, who, as I mentioned before, are probably one of the most beginner-friendly civilizations in the game. And we are sort of planning how we're going to expand and continue this game. So we are in a unique situation where we're kind of cut off on one side and there's not a lot of room to expand into, right? So really our only targets are opposing players. We're going to struggle to get more cities given the terrain that we currently have. So we're going to have to gear up for a somewhat early war here if we want to continue to expand our empire, because the name of the game in Humankind is basically constant expansion. The more cities you have, the more successful you're going to be, as long as you're not too far over your city cap, which is in the upper right-hand corner here, which is 2 of 2. You take influence per turn penalties for being over your city cap. We'll get a little bit more into that once we actually get over the city cap, and we can talk about sort of maximizing that. So in here, before we end the turn, I've realized I haven't done a great job of managing my people here, because I actually think I can disband the scout now as well and still have enough food to support an extra person. So I can get this person on industry. Usually at the start of the game, I am prioritizing industry and science. So industry just lets you build stuff faster, right? And the science lets you get through to techs faster. Later on, you can pull people off science once you have some of the core technologies that you need. But when you're trying to get up and running quickly, it's really important to have a few people on science, because this is basically your only source of science for the duration of the ancient era. So keep that in mind. So a couple things here. I might swap around this farmer's field and work on the Egyptian pyramid first. And the reason for that is I'm actually going to be producing units, and units eat up population. So if you hover over a unit, you can see under costs, this is 90 industry and -1 population. So every time you produce a unit, you pay that population cost, and it goes into that unit. And what that means is it'll actually recover food and be able to start growing again. So that's the plan. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about kind of preparing for war once we end the turn here. I actually know what this guy is going to do, which is put an outpost down, because I had thought about starting this on the next turn. So this outpost is pretty critical here because it's our only way out, really. We are going to pull some units back. That one right there, low health, so we're going to pull it back to our territory to heal up. Whoa, we're going way out of the way. And this guy is going to come drop an outpost, and yep, that's a layer there. Okay, so we're going to pillage that layer first, and then drop an outpost probably right here. And the reason I want to drop an outpost right here is that Thebes is building this Egyptian pyramid out this way. So I can actually get another Egyptian pyramid right here, which is really good for adjacency. So the maker's quarters in general get extra adjacency per maker's quarters, and the Egyptian pyramid gets extra adjacency per additional maker's quarter. So by having two of them stacked on top of each other or stacked next to each other, you can get some additional yields. And if you're smart about where you place your outposts or how you plan your cities, you can actually get like areas where you have triple adjacency. I've never had quadruple adjacency. I suppose it's probably possible, but triple is likely the most likely what you're going to get. But okay, a couple civics available. So 2 important civics. We delayed on army composition. We're going to come to that as well. We also have small council, where we can get 1 extra city cap, or we can get autarch, which is -10 stability per non-capital city. Stability is really important. This is like the 1 city challenge kind of one, which is a little funny. Like if you're playing really tall, autarch is good, but tall is just not a good strategy in Humankind. I would recommend always taking small council. The other thing we're looking at is this army composition, which we delayed. So we have +1 combat strength on unit, which is really strong, and reduced unit industry cost. Because I am the Egyptians and have really good industry already, this is amazing for me, and I can get an army out really quickly. +1 combat strength on unit is also a very strong benefit, and it moves you towards the Liberty axis, which is my preferred axis because of the extra influence on emblematic districts. So it's really hard to get influence as cultures that don't have like a lot of base influence generation from a culture or from like an emblematic quarter or a legacy trait or something along those lines. So Liberty is going to be really important for you to get influence throughout the course of the game. You can go order. It's a little bit better than it used to be. Extra stability on garrison can be pretty clutch, but I find most of my Most of the time, I prefer liberty. However, because we're the Egyptians and we plan to go to war pretty soon, I'm going to take the reduced unit industry cost and then cancel this civic later and get professional soldiers once I have an army online to get them that extra combat strength. So we're going to take that, and we'll come back for leadership on the next turn. Okay. So we also want to get an outpost down here. So those yields don't look theoretically as good, right? Only 6 and 9. But once this territory is attached to Thebes, this outpost will also work the 2 adjacent mountain tiles. So that would be up to 15 production on this tile and the 6 food. So I'm going to put it there. Meanwhile, Thebes is wrapping up on its Egyptian pyramid. And it's actually close enough that this is a good time to buy out. So if you're like getting pretty close to completing, then that's usually a pretty reasonable time to drop a little bit of cash just to get your extra industry up, say a turn earlier or what have you. So something to keep in mind about planning cities, because we're going to plop down a couple more quarters here. You generally want to concentrate one type of quarter, because all the quarters get adjacency bonuses for being next to quarters of the same type. So for instance, Maker's Quarters, you can see right here, the Egyptian pyramid actually gets an additional 2 industry from getting this Maker's Quarter placed here. And then the Maker's Quarter itself exploits these mountain tiles. You generally just want to stack them in all one area where there is a lot of one type of yield. So for industry, that's often going to be forests like this and woodland, or rocky terrain. So something like this little plateau here. And then for food, it's going to be like more open grassland like this, or sometimes harbors, depending on the strategy you're playing. For market quarters, they actually benefit from adjacency to luxury resources, so you can spend some time filling in market quarters around luxuries. And science quarters, once you unlock them, actually benefit from adjacency to the strategic resources, so you can kind of plan your cities around those. Generally, with the markets and science quarters, once you're unlocked on those, I try to put them in like lower value tiles. So for instance, like right here, food is usually pretty easy to generate, and there's enough food over here. This would be a great place for a bunch of science quarters. There's a strategic resource that's right here. There's a lot of flat lands that can give some adjacency bonuses by having stacked research quarters. So those are the kind of things that I'm thinking about as I'm laying out my cities. We have another civic unlocked. We're not going to worry about it for the time being, since we don't have enough influence. In the meantime, we are pulling our scouts back so that we can make sure we claim all the rest of the territories that we need to claim. Finally, we can also influence purchase this sage right here. This gives extra food on administrative centers, and let me back up. There are 2 effects for luxury resources, right? There's the diversification effect. So you have, in this one, you get +5 stability on all cities and +3 food on administrative center. So the +5 stability on all cities and +3 food on administrative center applies for the first copy of Sage that you have in your empire. So you'll see right here that this has 2. That means this deposit counts as 2 Sage accesses, as you see in the details when I hover over this. So the first access gives that diversification effect, and then you have the cumulative effect. So when you have the cumulative effect, that is the bonus that you get for each additional resource past the first. So by getting the Artisan's Quarter here, I get a net effect of 5 stability on all my cities and 5 food on administrative centers. So administrative centers are the things that you attach to your city center, which is right here. I believe the main plaza might also count as a city center, but I actually am not totally sure, so don't quote me on that. So we're going to influence purchase that, and that will increase the stability in a couple of my cities a little bit. And that's another reason why the luxury resources are so important as well, is you want to try to maintain as much stability in your cities as possible. Okay, so we're almost done with the Egyptian pyramids here, and I'm actually just going to buy those out. And now here comes the part where we prepare for actual war. So you'll see my city here is really, really far away. There's a river that I have to cross. There's a lot of like unfriendly terrain. There's another river right here. I don't want to deal with any of that to attack the opposing player. So I'm going to build a garrison. The garrison has an effect, it has a bunch of effects. The main one that people build it for is the extra stability from garrisons, and it is a good strategy to increase your stability. However, you can read some of the effects here, but the main thing that we're interested in this for is that it can function as a land unit spawn. So instead of spawning units on Memphis and having to march them all the way over here, we can just spawn units here and just march them straight into Yikane. So that is why we're going to start constructing this garrison here. It's also nice and out of the way, so it's not going to break up any district adjacency that we might want later in the game. Meanwhile, the scout is heading up this way, so I can try to secure that die. I suppose this guy could probably do it as well. He's a little closer. So I'll actually redirect. Well, maybe I should just disband this one. Actually, I should do that, I think. We'll disband this guy into Memphis. We'll put them on food so we don't lose any pop. And then we're going to queue up some military. So in the ancient era, archers are basically the primary units that you're interested in. They're going to be what does most of your damage because they have indirect fire. We'll talk a little bit more about this later. However, warriors are still very important because they serve as blocker units, right? So they sit in front of your archers and make sure melee can't get to them. I generally like a balance of these units in my armies in the ancient era. As you go through eras, the balance of what the best unit is tends to change. So when you get into the classical era, there's a pretty heavy bias towards melee because of the swordsmen, and there isn't an upgrade for the ranged units. So I'm just trying to explore here, and I can't actually get through there. So I basically have no choice but to try to break this guy's defenses. And it's going to be pretty challenging because of the location of that Cyclopean fortress and the units that he gets, but I am confident that we can do it. So let's go into tech. We're going to need bronze working and then organized warfare. So bronze working will unlock copper, as well as the forge, which is a really, really good infrastructure. There are quite a few infrastructures like this, but this one provides you some extra industry on your cities for every copper that you have. It also gives some extra industry on your maker's quarters and increases their industrial adjacency. So the forge is like a really important early game infrastructure to get, especially if you're playing someone like the Egyptians and have a lot of maker's quarters. Okay, so we've just finished up that artisan's quarter here, and we're going to... We actually haven't researched domestication yet, so we can't influence purchase that horse. I think that's fine. We're still going to attach because that's going to increase our industry. It's going to increase our food. And it gives us the option to build an additional Egyptian pyramid right here, which is going to be a really efficient pyramid. And then I'm thinking about maybe queuing up flood irrigation. We do have some rivers here. We would still need to build out to them. But it's not like a particularly effective flood irrigation, right? That's only +8 food. Down here I could get +7, but that's basically just as expensive as building a farmer's quarter. I think I'll also go for the flood irrigation. I could maybe go for the lumberyard, which would be really good in the city. So lumberyard gives you extra industry on forest and woodland. So that would be like this territory here. So I'm already working a few, and I'm going to be adding a couple more once I finish that Egyptian pyramid. So really getting my core industry online, and I think this is generally true of virtually every culture you're going to play, is that your first steps is going to be to get your core industry going. Okay. We have a non-aggression pact proposal, and we're actually going to accept that. It's just kind of awkward to target them. And actually, they've attacked us, so this is going to give us some good insight into their army composition. So they have 3 of these Promakoi, which are their emblematic units. So this Promakoi has that 22 combat strength, so we can see 21 base, and they also took the professional soldier civic, and then they have this champion effect. So I think it's either +3 or +4 when they are attacking in the first round of combat. So they're like kind of shock units, basically. And you are going to do best to avoid them if you possibly can. Okay, so they've created this as an administrative center, so we are like fully fenced in here. Okay, there's also very inconveniently been an independent people that has spawned here. So we might need to actually spawn the first unit here. And then, yeah, so I'm going to move the production queue a little bit. Actually, I'll spawn both of these warriors here. They can go over and deal with the redoubt, because I'm pretty sure that 2 warriors can take on 2 archers. So I'm going to move them there. Okay, that scout can't run away. They're just attacking me. Could probably just auto-resolve this, but yeah, I'll just automatic. There's no way I win that or do any significant damage. And then I'm going to produce my full army over here. I also want to try to pull these units back into my territory so I can disband them for a little bit more population. This is going to be a pretty challenging battle up here once I start initiating that. They also have a couple more crises that I can claim. Okay, they're going to force me to declare war or withdraw my demands. So I'm going to withdraw. They're actually going to declare war on me when I refuse their demands, which is, I think, fine. I'm actually not that worried about it. So unfortunate thing about right here is they could attack me and force me to retreat. If they do that, I would lose war supports. We'll see what happens. They're not currently attacking me. And I need to move these guys over here to pillage this redoubt, and then that'll secure this territory. In the meantime, I can influence purchase my artisans quarter, and that will get me some extra industry as well as stability on all my cities. I also need to take a look at my civics, because I still have this leadership available, and I want to get this +1 city cap. So that'll reduce the penalties I'm taking once I capture another city, or I won't suffer any penalties until I get to 4 cities. So we're in fairly good shape so far. See if we can get this guy out of there. And I'm just going to have this army hang out here, and I'm going to start working on another set of units, because in my current state, I am not going to be able to do any real damage to their army. You'll notice that I can only produce 2 units because I'm population limited. Okay, so they're attacking me. I apologize, there might be a little bit of background noise here. I am traveling at the moment, and I have pretty limited privacy, so a little difficult to record. But okay, so they come down onto the flag, which is really easy for me to hit. I'll be curious to see if these guys move onto the flag as well. Sometimes they will. So when you're playing defense, right, you have this flag that you have to defend, and if you lose the flag, then you lose the battle. Generally, the AI are pretty single-minded in terms of capturing that flag, so you can kind of abuse that a little bit. They'll like always try to have a unit on it if it's available to them. So I'm just going to queue up this copper right here, because that's going to be critical for both our infrastructure that we're going to get later once we finish this tech. Actually, we're taking a really long time now because of the units that we're producing. So we're going to move a couple more people onto science in Thebes. But once we get that tech available and can get the kiln, that'll increase our industry even farther, and we'll be even more effective at producing some of the things that we need to produce. Okay, let's end the turn. Get another unit to spawn up here, and we're going to pull this guy back, and we can disband the scout and basically convert them into another unit. So I'm going to probably get another archer, and I'm going to check my war score here. So you'll see that they have -1 ongoing war support from declaring war, and -1 from proximity state as attacker. I'm blanking on what the from proximity state as attacker is, but you'll always have minus war support for declaring war. I don't have any negative modifiers, but some other negative modifiers include things like having cultural control of one or the other. So if I had my culture was dominant in this territory, then they would take a negative war support modifier, and vice versa. I also need to think about getting an obelisk of the gods online to help support my religious spread. We'll talk about that in a little bit, because we are more focused on ensuring we can deal with this guy here. I'm going to keep bringing these guys up to the front. We'll probably make use of them later. You'll see I could buy out these archers for 4. The thing with buying out units is that they actually can't act on the turn that you buy them out, so it's a little bit pointless. And actually they have an army coming towards my city. So this is an interesting one, because they're actually way better on the defense than they are on the offense. So what I'm going to do is change my spawn point to be in Memphis so that this archer spawns here and I have an archer to defend. And I'm going to pull these units back here so they can hopefully help come reinforce the city. And I'm pretty sure that between the units that I have and generally beneficial terrain, this will be pretty hard to attack into, that I can manage to deal with a siege should they come to get me. Keep moving these units, and we'll see what direction they go in. I think they're going to go straight for the city. Yep, they sure are. Okay. So they do have one advantage, which is that they have these archers, and these Promakoi are pretty strong. I also only have one levy. The levy is like the home guard unit. They automatically spawn when your city comes under attack based on the amount of population that you have, as well as certain other constraints. I actually want the levies to take the first hit because the Promakoi are really strong. These archers right here, you can see that based on the terrain, this tile right here is too far down for anyone to attack them. And these tiles right here aren't connected to their deployment zone. So this archer can camp in this district and fire down onto my opponents relatively safely. And then these guys right here, right, in order to attack into the city, this is like the only safe tile to do so where they have no debuffs. Whereas here and here, there's a river and they have to attack uphill if they want to go for this tile. So I'm okay with that deployment. We'll see what they do. Okay, and the Promakoi are kind of coming around the side there. Alright, so we're getting a little bit of a bug there. Looks like the archers didn't shoot. We want to probably hit the archers first. They have the most potential damage. One of the problems I'm going to have is if I kill these archers, that's going to move my units into that space. I think. Am I like forgetting? No, I'm not. Man, my brain is a little bit melted right now because I've been switching back and forth between Civ and Humankind. So Humankind, your units don't move when they kill a unit, which is really nice defensively because you can do stuff like that, right? When they expose their archers, you can kind of go after them. These warriors, they have like higher combat strength than I do generally. I am considering attacking downhill right here. Actually, one thing I could do, and I probably should have done earlier, I can cancel conscripts and get professional soldiers, and that way these units are going to have one extra combat strength, which would have helped me and I should have done earlier. But I can attack downhill here. I'm likely to lose this warrior anyway, so I want to try to prevent them from getting into the city as much as I can. So I'm going to let this warrior eat a little bit of damage. So the nice thing about the city is that they have these kind of barriers as defenses, and it makes it a lot more challenging for the AI to actually attack you. All right. So, bit of a conundrum here. I'm fine with losing the levies if I need to. I kind of wonder if I can kill these Promakoi, though. I think I can. So I'm going to get rid of those Promakoi because they're giving this Promakoi right here rear attack, and I don't want that. And say they were to take this flag on this turn, which I think they will, if they attack downhill. That's fine. I don't care about losing the levies very much. I still have another round to take the flag back, and they will be very low health. I'm going to let this guy sit here, and maybe he'll survive. And this guy actually managed to survive as well, which is really nice. There's a little bit of randomness in the attack values. So sometimes that'll favor you, sometimes it won't. Just how it goes. So I am thinking, what's my penalties here? No line of sight is -4. So if I move here, I'll have -3 from river, but I will get that line of sight, right? So that gives me a chance to kill that unit. Doesn't look like it's going to happen. Okay. So what I'm going to do is, I don't really care about these levies because I don't need to produce them, right? They're just population. I'm going to see if they can kill the Promakoi for me. They can't. My hope was that I could use them to kill the Promakoi, and then I could move this warrior onto that space. And what that would let me do is pull this warrior here through my own unit, and avoid this Promecoi's zone of control. So zone of control, aside from 1 unit in the classical era, is a 1 tile radius. So units within a 1 tile radius of an enemy unit are zone of controlled and have reduced movement. I'm still going to kill that Promekoi with my warrior, but it's unlikely that this warrior is going to survive. In the meantime, since I actually look pretty good on that battle, I will pull these units back in this direction, and they're likely to be a little bit weaker and not have as many units available, which will be quite nice for me. So I could also work on the obelisk. I've actually had collapse stability here. I'm not sure why. I guess just the attached territory is probably what did it. So I am likely to build this obelisk here. So it produces faith, and we talked about faith in the previous episode. It's kind of like the strength of your religion, right? And it's calculated by territory, and it allows you to push your religion into other territories and so on. But really, like, the main consideration for me in building the obelisk in most games is the plus 20 stability that it provides. And I think I'm going to take advantage of that in this game as well. I'm actually just going to kind of build it up here and not really try to get too much adjacency. I'm not worried about the extra faith necessarily. I think maybe like right there will get filled in a little bit later. I'll likely have like maker's quarters here and maybe some like science quarters in there, something like that. So let's go ahead and end the turn. And you'll see that, you know, I'm under siege here, and I also have a wonder available. So when you're under siege, oh, they actually came up here and attacked my archers. I did not expect that. That's fine. We can pull the archers back. Uh-oh, that might have been an error on my part. These guys, I should be able to get up here, actually. Well, let's... Okay, so what we're going to have to do, I guess, is try to, like, block. I am likely to lose that warrior, and I definitely made a misplay there. But the AI is going crazy. So what I could have done is hold the low health units maybe here. I guess either one would have been vulnerable. I was expecting them to attack the one on the river, though, is kind of why I'm a little flustered there. We're going to pull this guy back here to give them some adjacency bonuses from units. Okay, they're attacking my archers again, who are fine because they're inside the city. Maybe pull them back here just in case I don't kill these Promekoi. And they did. Pretty tight battle there, actually. And you know, those Promekoi are quite dangerous units, but we did pretty well. Okay, we have an event that doesn't want to open. Good. Looks like maybe a bug. Weird. Okay, so let's move these forward. But what I was going to say before is that you'll notice when a city is sieged that it can't actually produce anything, right? So during that entire time, my production queue was paused, and you just straight up lose that production. And there's nothing you can do about it other than break the siege. You can also use this to your benefit, right? Because the same applies to enemy cities if you keep them under siege as well. Usually there's not a lot of reason to keep things under siege, but you know, every once in a while you can find a case for it. Okay. We have a couple options here. I'm going to take the reduced religious district industry cost, maybe. Actually, let me check the wonders first. I forgot that we had one available. So a lot of wonders still available. Pyramid of Giza is a very good one. Unfortunately, it's already been claimed. So claiming wonders, the way this works in Humankind is, you know, it's not competitive to build a wonder. Instead, you spend some influence to claim it, and you are the exclusive person that can build that wonder. So whatever one of these I want, I can claim that one, and no one can like beat me to it and take it away from me. I just build it on my own time, and the effect comes. So Pyramid of Giza is really nice because of the reduced district industry cost and combines really nicely with the Egyptians. Unfortunately, it's been claimed already. There are a lot of really good wonders in the ancient era, so you should definitely pay attention to this. Sables of Pi Ramses is also nice. You get extra combat strength on mounted units and extra land movement speed on units, both very good, and reduced mounted unit industry cost. Another really nice one in this era is the Temple of Artemis, for the extra ranged combat strength, as well as, you know, some faith, a lot of stability, right? There's a whole bunch of effects from these things. Stonehenge can be good in certain situations. Hanging Gardens is okay. I'm just going to skip over this one for now because this goes into manufactories, which we're not really ready to discuss yet. So in thinking about like which wonder you want, really consider your situation and kind of what you're planning to do in the future. And what I'm considering, right, is Stables of Pyramses is really nice for the extra land movement speed. Land movement speed is one of the most valuable effects in the game, to be completely honest with you, especially early on in the game. For a variety of reasons, it applies both on, in combat as well as on the like land map, however you want to describe that. So it allows you to move faster, play more tactically, just a really good effect. And this reduced mounted units industry cost applies to my emblematic units. So this is a really strong one for me. Temple of Artemis, +2 combat strength on units is also really nice and also applies to my emblematic unit, but it also benefits my existing units and provides me extra stability. So the overall kind of like outputs that I get from this are more broadly applicable, but this +1 land movement speed is like a really powerful effect that I really value. Also, I think an unnoted effect here is that, oh, no, here it is. Stable of Pyramses also creates a deposit of horses. So if you don't have any horses in your empire, that is one way to get them. I do think I'm going to go for the Temple and play a boring game here. I think Temple is one of the best wonders in the game, really. But in the Ancient era, I guess, is a time that it really shines. Okay, we have some tech available, and we're going to go domestication into wheel. So domestication will unlock horses, and wheel will unlock the Markabata, which is our emblematic unit. Okay, small army there that we can continue to pull forward, and we have an effect that we can choose from. So I'm going to go for Patriotic for the reduced land unit industry cost. This also moves me to the homeland axis, which is generally my preferred. So this one gives you extra strength on units, whereas the opposite axis gives you extra food on your cities. Both are viable, but I'm a fairly aggressive player overall, so I do value things that benefit my military a lot. So pretty low on units, or sorry, on population in here now. We're going to get that flood irrigation going after this copper mine. And we should also pull that unit up, that army. And I think maybe get another unit in here. I'm thinking just another blocker unit because those Promakoi are so strong. So as long as you have enough blocker units, you can usually win on fire superiority. Okay, so we've unlocked several stars. And I'm going to... Oh, I forgot to spawn this in the right place, actually. I forgot to change my spawn point. That's okay. We're still going to push forward anyway and just see what we can find. We have a lot of stars this era so far, but not enough. I think a lot of new players are going to make a mistake where they jump ahead into the next era almost as soon as it becomes available, but that is not really what you should do in Humankind. You should be trying to maximize as many of these stars as you can every single era rather than jumping to the next era immediately, like as soon as the culture is available. Again, like every rule, there are a couple of exceptions, like if you are playing a Hun strategy, but most of you are not going to be playing that, right? So generally, kind of like the benchmark that I use is finishing all my scientist stars is around the time that I'm looking to go up into the next era. We also have an attack here. So I actually don't think I can win this on that terrain. So I'm just going to retreat, and that's fine. I'll lose a little bit of war support, but I have some reinforcing armies coming up, and hopefully the capacity to reinforce that army with a little bit more production in the not so distant future. So we're going to get this horse ranch online here, so we get access to those resources, as well as just get our flood irrigation and forge. I'm going to get the forge first, just because it'll make producing that flood irrigation a little bit more efficient. Over here, this flood irrigation is pretty efficient already. We'll just queue the forge up after that. And really, we're worried about trying to get as much food in the city as possible so that we can maintain a larger army. Okay. So there is this random scout running around there. I could try to attack them to get some free war supports, but that seems a little overkill to me at the moment. Okay. We have one more unit that we can build now, that we've gotten an additional population. Make sure we've queued it right here. This is a pretty aggressive strategy, but this is kind of the strategy that we need to play for this particular game, just based on the situation that we're in, because otherwise we have nowhere to go, right? There's also a couple of grizzlies wandering around. I do need to claim this territory at some point, but it's not actually a high priority territory for me. I should also consider attaching this territory here so that I can get another Egyptian pyramid before I go up into the next era. Kind of same thing up here for Thebes. It's not a priority quite yet, but this guy wants to trade resources with me. I'm at peace with him, so it's fine. We can talk about trading a little bit. So I can choose to purchase, say, salt for a flat fee. I can, it's 30 per number of accesses, right? And then there's a baseline maintenance cost that is associated with that trade route. And the maintenance cost scales up with the number of trade routes that you have. It's pretty difficult to maintain trade routes in the Ancients because your gold income is not going to be very high. But if you're playing like the Nubians or something, it becomes a little bit easier. But generally, I don't have a lot of trade routes running in this era because it's hard enough to produce money as it is. Okay, so they're attacking me here. This is a better location because I have my own garrison that I can defend from. So let's take a look at what their army is. Okay. So they have 2 archers and 6 promakoi. I think I'm fine with this. We're going to take a manual battle. And we're kind of going to focus around defending the garrison. So I'm going to move all of these warriors to kind of be blocker units. And I'm fine with being on the river because the only place they can attack me from is that river. We're not going to worry about the scout right here. He's not really a threat. We're just going to kind of defend our backside against that scout so he doesn't start hitting our archers. Unfortunately, this unit isn't in the starting deployments, but we can add them as reinforcements once we get started. As long as they aren't standing on top of my guys right away. So that's a pretty good position for their archers there. This is a not so good position for their archers because we can just destroy them very easily. So archers are generally a priority target when you can reach them. Really recommend trying to focus them down to the extent that you can. We're also probably going to play pretty aggressively with some of these warriors here, just so we can get to these archers. And that way we can use these archers to maybe plink them down. Looks like it won't be quite enough. So we could pull some more archers in. I think I'll make some space right here to get some archers. This guy will be a little bit more vulnerable because he's on a river and could possibly be attacked by 2 promakoi. So I'm just going to have them sit because he's going to take a lot of damage rather than taking an attack himself. I'll pull the archers over here where they can make an attack and they'll actually kill that unit. And then I can attack that promakoi right there. And then finally, this last archer, there's only one. I guess there's a couple spots available. The only spot that I can hit anyone from, though, is on this river. So I'm going to go ahead and take that, even though it's not hyper efficient. But that way I can hit that promakoi, and I might actually be able to kill them. I'm going to take that risk. Nope, not quite. But I did a good amount of damage there, so I don't regret making that attack. So already, because of the mispositioning of their archers, we've taken away their fire superiority, which gives us a huge advantage in actually deciding the outcome of this battle. If you have more ranged units in the Ancient era and they can't get to your ranged units, you're going to win the battles like 90% of the time, as long as you're like not allowing them access to your backline units. So this guy's going to get pretty beat up. Yep, I'm going to lose him. That's fine. Don't fret losing like a single unit in battle. They had some reinforcements come up here that I wasn't aware of. They got some rear attacks on me. It's fine. In the meantime, we can take care of the scouts. Thinking, yeah, let's just use the archers to hit it. And then we can do some damage to that promakoi there. Not quite enough to kill them. However, I can get an attack on this promakoi on the river here. Actually, we'll use this unit here. And I'm going to pull this guy up and give this unit a little bit of extra adjacency. So I can see I have +2 from friendly units now on this attack. This is a good time to attack them because they have that -3 from crossing the river. Okay, and these guys are just going to camp out here. I could actually pull this guy back probably. he's getting hit from this guy and sitting on a river, so I'll probably do that on my next round. Yeah, we can just pull them back there. And I'll use these archers to continue to hit the Promecoy. Apparently this guy's decided he doesn't want to be able to hit them anymore. Let's see, let's move there. I think I can just melee him. I think I lost line of sight, and that's why I can no longer shoot. So if I move that guy there, I should be able to shoot him again. And I'm going to move these archers onto the garrison, shoot him again. And I guess probably just take a river spot. I'd really like to be able to wipe these guys out without taking any damage back. There we go. So I'm playing very conservatively, and one big advantage of this is, like I mentioned earlier with sieges, if a battlefield covers the city, they actually can't produce anything either. So right now, we're stuck in this combat, and their capital is not producing anything because it's in the battlefield. So this is hugely advantageous for us, right? This is a great spot for us to be fighting. Okay. We don't want to be on this tile. See this guy? +8 bonus from districts, right? Because of this trait that this guy has that I've mentioned before. The +6 combat strength and combat for units in or adjacent to districts, as well as the baseline effect of the Cyclopean Fortress. So we don't want to fight them in that spot. So let's pull them back over here and just continue to make use of our archers to continue to hit them as much as possible. We don't want to take any extra damage on our melee units if we don't have to. One archer won't be able to shoot this round, but that is okay. And I think we'll go ahead and kill that guy, even though that'll do a decent bit of damage, but we can pull him back. So you can see how I'm just like trying to maintain as much of a like front line as I can and just use the archers behind to pelt the enemy units to death, right? That's the basic strategy of the Ancient Era. And if you can, successfully block your enemy from accessing your archers, like I said, you're going to win most of the time. And there I lost one unit, which was a little bit clumsy on my part, but really not that big of a deal in the grand scheme of things. Okay, so I'm going to set expert policy in the city, which I'm already on, and I want people to start. So this will prioritize, let me back up. This order prioritizes where your new population goes. So if I'm on expert policy and I have this is going to fill up first, and then it's going to go to industry, and then it's going to go to money, and then they're going to go to science. I want to prioritize industry, then I want to prioritize science, and then money, and then food. Generally speaking, farmers are pretty inefficient in terms of producing things. 6 food per farmer is not a lot, so you can improve it a little bit. But oftentimes your population is going to be better served on industry, money, or science, unless you're like really rapidly trying to grow your city at the start. Not always true, right? As always, there are exceptions to everything, but that's generally the approach that I take. So we also have Temple of Artemis available. This is a shared project, so that means all cities can work on it. I think that might be worth it in Thebes, given its current stability. Might struggle to maintain that, so getting extra 40 stability here could be really nice. Alternatively, I may want to build a faith building closer to my opponents and try to put some religious pressure. But this does seem like a really good spot here, because 24 faith there is pretty strong. So I think I'm going to put it in Thebes. We don't need to work on it quite yet. I want to finish some of these other items first, and then we can perhaps turn to completing that in the not-so-distant future. Let's see. Memphis? Thebes. No, I was looking at the wrong city here. So Thebes only has flood irrigation. I'm thinking about getting one more Maker's Quarter here just to really spruce up the industry, and then maybe start working on Temple of Artemis. And then same thing over here. I feel pretty good about the number of units that I have at this point. So something fun you can do with units that I do all the time, if you are in your own territory, you can pay to heal units, which I'm going to do here. And this allows you to play quite aggressively with your units. Unfortunately, they're trying to zone and control me here. I am going to combine a couple units in here. This will be a full army and kind of move through the zone of control. Going to move these guys up. We'll combine one warrior in there. Kind of have another one scout a little bit farther forward. I want to move this warrior back because he's unhealed. Heal them up. Going to recombine them with the army. Get them as much towards the city as I can, and then attack. Because as soon as I attack this guy, all these armies are going to lose movements because they're all going to be in the battlefield. So you want to try to use that movement before you make the attack. And they've actually run right into my warriors here, so I can use this as an opportunity to basically get some free war score by killing these scouts. They're actually pretty strong scouts. Let's see, I'm gonna back up here. And it seems like they might come to me. No? Okay. I should be able to survive one attack from them, so I'm going to hop on their flag there. Surprised they could actually get up there. I guess they had just enough movement to do so. Still won the battle, though, so it's all good. And then tech. So we don't have any high priority techs. I think I'm going to go for writing because this gives us the House of Scribes, which gives us extra researcher slots and extra science on researchers. The researchers are these guys right here. Don't have anyone assigned in Memphis at the moment. I am going to actually pull some people off of science at this point. It's not as high of a priority for me because I have all the core things that I want. So I'm going to put them on money because, as you'll see here, I don't have any merchant stars yet. I'm very unlikely to get any merchant stars this era, but I would like to get at least, or to get 3 merchant stars, but I would like to get at least 1, right? I don't want to leave any fame on the table. Okay, so it looks like we can approach from this way, so we're going to go ahead and do that. And unfortunately, a neutral party has kind of moved in and zone of controlled our units. So we're going to have to wait an extra turn before we can actually siege Mycenae. This kind of stuff happens all the time. You just have to deal with it, you know? It does get a little annoying when you're in a really good position to, say, attack an enemy city. Or like when they just get directly in the way like that. But thankfully their city is right here, so we have a good attack. So you can choose to maintain your siege. This is something you'll do if you are confident that the enemy cannot actually break your lines or break through your attacking force, but you don't have enough firepower to actually break into the city. Those situations are pretty rare. You generally want to be attacking cities with such overwhelming force that you can assault immediately. You can produce this siege equipment, and these home guard units will lose health over time. But in this case, right, like look at the difference in units. They have 2, and I have almost 16. Not quite. I guess I was thinking I had 1 more army than I do, but I have 9, right? So I have overwhelming force here. I have a ton of archers. I'm going to be able to decimate this very, very quickly. So I'm not going to worry too much about my deployments because this is a pretty low risk battle. I'm just going to use my archers, just like last time, do as much damage as possible. I'm going to attack from the high ground there, maybe kill those levies, not quite. I'll just pause with my melee units here. I don't really need to do anything special with them. Okay. They did have 1 scout that came in behind and reinforced. Not a big deal though, we'll just shoot him with an archer. And probably do it with that one. And then we can take that attack on the levy, and that'll win us the battle. So now we have occupied Mycenae. So you'll see that they've lost some war support from their units having been lost. And they're going to take a ticking war support penalty because I have occupied one of their cities. So once this gets down to 0, we can ask them to surrender, and if they do, we can take Mycenae from them, which actually looks like a pretty big city with some nice luxury resources, so that'll be a huge benefit to us. All right, this guy right here, I'm actually going to come down in here and just claim an outpost. I'm just going to drop it in a pretty inefficient spot so this guy can't get it. Now I can always relocate that one later. I also have a couple civics I haven't chosen yet, I realized. I should probably get personal rights. Reduced religious district industry cost applies to wonders as well that are religious districts. I'm also going to take paid wages. So stability on city that you occupy and extra stability per stationed unit on all cities. So what's nice about that is when you occupy a city, usually its baseline is 0 stability. And what that means is when you capture that city, it has to recover to 35% stability before you can actually build any districts in that city. So that becomes a problem, right? Because you're basically just sitting on your hands for several turns while you wait for the stability to recover. So by having a higher baseline stability, it means you can make use of captured cities earlier. I also have an outpost I'd like to attach here. I'm actually going to rush this Maker's Quarter because if I attach this outpost, it's going to increase the cost of my Maker's Quarters. So when I'm thinking about attaching outposts, I'm usually thinking like a total of a 3-tile territory per city. You can get more later, but I wouldn't go over 3 in the ancient era because there are stability penalties and production penalties to your districts. So you'll see my stability has gone down there, but it does give me access to another very good special district, the Egyptian pyramid. And then I'm also going to do the same here. A little bit of a stability hit, but again, not a big deal. And we're going to build another Egyptian pyramid in Memphis as well. And then probably queue up that lumberyard for that extra 18 industry. Even thinking about just buying this outright, because this is 18 industry for 700 gold feels like a good trade to me. So I think I'm going to do that. I'm going to see if I can move anyone onto money without reducing the number of turns it takes to produce Temple of Artemis. Okay, I can still 3-turn that with 4 people on money because I am trying to get at least one of these merchant stars before I advance into the next era. I also have not produced my emblematic unit yet, but it doesn't look like I'm going to need it for the time being. Okay, we have an army that looks like it's coming to reinforce. We can definitely intercept that. And I'm just going to use these 2 armies as my offensive force and use this one to just kind of occupy Mycenae. Because if you leave a city unoccupied, an opposing force can literally just like march right in and take the city back. So you need some units there to try to defend. Let's see, I have 1 more territory I need to claim. Pretty low priority territories. I don't need them for anything for the time being. So I can take my time with those.
An enormous leap.
And there's writing. And actually, this player has gone up an era. I'm going to refuse those terms. So this means they are actually going to start getting access to swordsmen. So I either basically need to beat them now, or just kind of sit here and wait for the war to end. Because once they start getting swordsmen, they're going to do a lot of damage to my units. So thankfully, that's going to tick war support down a little bit farther because they retreated. And I have a couple techs more to go. I'll just queue up masonry. The stoneworks will probably be pretty nice for me. And I apologize. I am just checking the recording time for 1 second. Okay. So we're almost to the end of the era. Just a couple more techs to go. We don't need to finish all the techs. We do have our scientist stars. We need 1 more district for our builder star. And we're pretty close on the aesthete stars as well. We haven't gotten any diplomat stars. I haven't really talked about how this works, and I haven't really been focused on it. It's pretty common. I go through a game with 0 diplomat stars. That's not uncommon. They're pretty hard to get, to be honest with you. So if you're not getting them, don't worry about it too much. I don't really want to lose that stability on cities. This is like a net neutral effect, so I'm going to take the father option there. Okay. Really need to get to Axum, which is the Axumites, before they get swordsmen. I would like to try to take that city from them as well, and like really try to cripple them for the rest of the game. Okay, they have Shodelai. So Shodelai are very powerful melee units, and they have extended zone of control. This is the unit I was actually talking about earlier, so thanks to the Axumites for demonstrating this for me. So I could try to attack them. I think I have enough units to deal with it, but it is still a risky move. So if I went up here, right, I would have a pretty good battle here in terms of raw strength, but they do have 1 very powerful unit. I think I'm still going to go for it. So I think they might retreat. They will not. Okay, so we're going to manual battle. And basically what we're going to do is just camp out on the high ground here and use blockers for our archers. So just like that, right? So this way, unless they go all the way down and around, I guess I need to consider that as well. I suppose any unit moving through here will get zone of controlled, so I'm going to put this right here just so they can't send anyone up this way. So this way I can see anyone approaching my archers. Okay, so they're playing pretty conservatively. Let me check right here. They don't have any units, so I can like come down here and actually start shooting over the mountain. And I'm going to gamble a little bit and go on flat ground, just so I can target this Shodelai as much as possible with these archers. I'd prefer to be hitting their archers, but in this situation, that's just not possible. As you can see, right, I'm not doing a ton of damage right now. Now, thankfully, because of where they moved, I should start doing more damage to them. And I can actually move these guys to a better location to shoot them now. Okay. So we're going to plink these guys down as much as possible. And then we should be able to hopefully kill them. Not quite. This guy's a little damaged, so he can't quite do the job either. I would still like to attack the archers. I'm going to pull them back. I'll have to let the archers live another turn, I guess. They'll show to lie because they're such high combat strength for higher priority, whereas these spearmen are going to be pretty easy to deal with. So they'll get one more shot. I only took 4 damage, so not that big of a deal. And I'm going to move this guy here for a high ground attack. I'll snipe him first with an archer, and that guarantees a kill. And I guess this is a city district. It's just not rendering properly right now, which does happen sometimes when you are looking at the battlefield. I can move a couple archers there to attack those spears. I don't want to get too aggressive because they could maybe move out of the city and come get my units. Yep, just like that. They seem to have some bonus combat or some bonus movement speed. Actually, I suppose I knew that, right? Because they have the Pathfinder trait, so that extra +2 land movement speed. Really doing some damage there. But again, right, these units aren't high enough combat strength to like insta-kill my archers. And really what I care about is that the archers survive the battle and not necessarily that they have full health when the battle is over. I'm going to move up here, shoot them, go up onto the high ground and attack down, and that'll deal with those guys. And I'm just going to let those spears attack me and try to do a little bit of damage with my archers. That'll take care of that army. And that'll put me in a really good position to capture Axum. I should basically be able to march in, assuming they can't produce a whole bunch more units. Memphis. We're in a pretty good position here. So what I'm thinking about is how I want to specialize the city. I think I would like to get to 200 production, which I'm going to do by getting a maker's quarter. And then I should think about like whether I want to specialize the city more into money or more into science. This is kind of an approach that I take that I think makes it a lot easier to manage your empire, which is like getting your core industry up and then picking one of money or one of money or science, and then building basically exclusively that district and that city. So I could say make Thebes the research center, and they have some strategic resources which would make them a nice thing for that. And then Thebes, I guess, would probably be best as a research center as well. And then maybe Mycenae, once I actually capture that, could be market quarters. So I think that's kind of my loose plan going in here. Okay, so they got an envoy, which I actually don't care about. So we're going to siege Axum here. You'll see that the war can end. However, I would like to capture this first, because it means I'll be able to take this in the peace deal if I so choose, which would actually put me 1 over the city cap. So I'm just going to make this attack, because we want to kill this guy as quick as possible. I'm not going to be too strategic about this, because it's a very easy battle. All right, so we've captured Axum, so we now have 2 cities under our control, and we can ask for their surrender. And we are going to ask them to give us all the stuff in Mycenae, and in Axum, it's everything they have.
Your support.
And we can go ahead and renounce this trespassing. This gets us what's called leverage. So leverage is used in, we haven't talked about this at all, even though it's relevant. Leverage is used in various forms of diplomacy, which you get after you unlock the embassy and you build the embassy, We haven't done that yet, so we don't really have any opportunities to use leverage, but we will later. But there's no point in making that demand because we're unlikely to go to war with them since they have no cities left. So we have some unclaimed wonders. Sables of Pyramses is still available. I'm actually going to claim that as well. This is a very good wonder to have because of that extra movement speed on units, as well as some of the stability and other effects. So we'll build that in a little bit. Take a look at our era stars here. You can see we're actually doing quite nicely, right? 3 stars here, 3 here, 3 here, 3 here, and 3 here. We would need another 500 gold to get the merchant stars and another 11 population to get the agrarian stars. It's incredibly unlikely that I will get those stars in a reasonable amount of time, right? That's going to take a long time to get. Actually, I guess I'm doing a lot more money per turn than I thought I was. So I'm at 186. So I could get that in a few turns. So I'm actually going to hold off a few turns before I pick my next culture so that I can get another merchant star. In the meantime, Thebes, I can't build any science quarters yet, but I could build a harbor, which will get me some food as well as allow me to build ships later. I could also maybe do the same in Thebes for an extra 12 food. And there's also a really good agrarian district down there later, but that is not a priority yet. Okay. So Mycenae. Mycenae can't build any districts right now, but it can build a very good flood irrigation. So the stability will slowly recover over time up to 75%. Once it hits 35%, I'll actually be able to start building districts again. So ideally, you capture cities pretty early on in an era, because what will happen is you won't have time to build your emblematic district and conquered cities before the era turns over, which is likely to happen this game. You can delay it if you want, and there are a couple tricks when it comes to maximizing that. So specifically, is that an independent? That is. Okay. So specifically, if you have any amount of production put into an emblematic district, when the age turns over, it'll remain in the production queue. So you can do some funny things where you like put one turn of production into multiple districts, and then carry them over into the next age. This is not like a particularly good city. I actually think I am going to pillage this city and just reform it as an outpost. So you can pillage your own cities really easily, just the same way you would anything else, and it'll only ever take one turn to do so. So that is a strategy you can use when you need to conquer a city, but it's a city that you don't actually want very much. So I'm also going to queue up stables, and it's recommending that because there's some really good outputs from that. However, I might prefer the stability in my capital. And this is actually pretty good outputs here, 12 food and 15 industry, so we'll go ahead and place that. And this can just work on that while it pillages. And then we don't have enough influence yet. We'll need to wait a turn, but we'll take that back in just a moment. Okay. Something else to keep in mind with these independent peoples is that they can actually attack your cities sometimes. So I'm going to pull those units back. They have... Okay. So what just happened there? They settled this outpost, and that gave me a grievance because it was adjacent to my territory. I made that demand, and they actually accepted that demand, which was to turn over this territory. So now I actually gain their outpost that they just settled. And usually that'll happen if they're kind of afraid of you and you have higher, better military than they do. Also, you can see that we have no tech left here to research. That's okay, right? We know that we are getting the merchant era star, and then we're going to turn over to the next stage. We've actually reduced our money output a little bit. Let's fix that. We should have no one on science because that is a complete waste of time right now, right? So I'll end the turn. And we just have 250 to go, so that's 2 more turns. We also need to think about our next steps, but we will get going on that in the next episode and just try to make it through the end of the ancient era here. I'm going to take celebrating on Mycenae because that'll get me towards collectivism, which gives me extra industry on cities, even though I have to pay some money for it, but that's okay. And then I have 1 more turn, and then I'll have that merchant era star. Treaties, non-aggression pacts with the Assyrians. I don't know where they are, so I think I'm just going to accept. This feels a little weird. I think I may have had New World on by accident. Because there shouldn't be this many. I shouldn't have met all these players. They should be on different continents. That's okay though. We can talk about New World once we get to the early modern, basically. Right, and there we go. There's our merchant star. So we have 4,500 fame. We are the top of the fame charts already on Humankind difficulty. And there's our 3 merchant stars. We have 2 agrarian stars. We 3-star pretty much everything else except the diplomat stars. So we are ready to go. You won't always have this good of an era, and that's fine. We're just going to queue up some of the stables of High Ramses here, just so we can produce that as we go up into the next era. So, lot of different options here. Like I said, you want to try to wait until you've maximized your fame, and then you can think about which culture you actually want to pick. There are a lot of really good options in the classical. A few really easy ones for beginners if they're still available. Celts are pretty easy because of the food. The Maya are pretty easy because of the just industry. My preference and what I think is probably the best culture in the classical is the Achaemenid Persians, because you get the extra city cap, which is really hard to get. And the Satrap's Palace and Immortals are both really nice units and districts. So something that's interesting about considering districts in your culture that you're going to choose is that districts that produce an output that isn't associated with the culture's primary era star is actually a little bit more valuable. So if this Satrap's Palace were associated with a merchant, the extra money that you're getting from it is less valuable because a merchant culture has a higher threshold to get merchant stars. So when you're the Achaemenids and you're getting money and influence, it makes it a lot easier to get those stars. Whereas if you're looking at the Morians, right, who are aesthetes, this influence that you get on the Supa and the extra influence per adjacent districts, although it's good to have, it's harder to get those influence stars. So that's something to think about, even though those stars are worth more. Greeks are also a pretty good option as well. Science per researcher, hoplites, amphitheater, etc. In our situation, oftentimes Egyptians will combo nicely into the Garamantes. This is a DLC culture though, and is actually not particularly good in our situation because there are a lot of terrain requirements on their emblematic district. So basically, right, unless you need something very specific about a culture in terms of their affinity, so for instance, the collective minds that science gets, just take a look at every element of the culture and think about is this what I need to develop and deploy my strategy over the next 30 to 50 turns? Do I feel like my science output is really lagging behind? Do I feel like my food output is holding me back? Do I feel like I am really struggling with production? And kind of orient your culture pick around that. You could also consider the emblematic units. They can be quite powerful in most situations. But generally speaking, right, you should be trying to orient these things to your long-term strategy. And for me, my long-term strategy, because we're so penned in and I had some really funny world gen settings on accident, is going to be the Achaemenids, because I am likely going to be playing quite aggressively and want that city cap. I could also potentially go for the Romans, but I think I'm going to take the Achaemenids just because the Satrap's Palace is a really good district. Immortals are a perfectly good unit. They're more defensive than offensive, but they have pretty high combat strength. And the city cap and extra stability is really nice. So we'll adopt the Achaemenids, and that'll put us into the classical era. So we're going to end it here, and we're going to pick up right where we left off in the classical. A lot of the classical is really going to be using the same concepts that we had from the ancient era. We can get a little bit more into things like city planning and how we develop that, as well as how we manage kind of our stability across our cities as well. Becomes a lot more important in the classical era. So appreciate you tuning in, and I'll see you next time.